The Maggio trials contains themes of drug use, mental illness, and medicinal malpractice. Take care of yourself. Thank you for listening.
Okay, I didn't inject myself. It's still me. I mean, it's always going to be me, but my voice, you know what I mean. I was going to. I really wanted to, but then I got the needles out and they were huge. Like, as long as my finger. And I just couldn't do it. Which was a good thing. My manager, Stephanie, called me to work for tomorrow, which is uncommon. I'm typically off on Sundays and Mondays. Apparently, Dennis called off last minute again. He just started working 2 months ago, realized that the job sucks, and now is slacking off. And Stephanie won't fire him because it's nearly impossible to get a replacement. To work at Laurus University, you have to pass a really advanced background check that takes forever to go through. And to do that just to work at fast food, get a job at McDonald's and not bother with the trouble. The only reason I got this job was because my dad was a janitor when the university was just a lab. Which, I mean... Anyway, Dennis is a really shady guy, and I give him about a week until he quits. Since I go to work tomorrow, Stephanie's going to give me next Saturday off, so I'm going to try the shot again next Friday night. I stopped by the CVS that opened up near here, and they just let me buy a whole pack of needles. So I got smaller ones, so hopefully it won't be as scary. I guess I would be a pretty shitty doctor, being terrified of needles. Not that anyone expected me to be a doctor. Like I said, my dad was a janitor, and my mom's greatest achievement is that she's a manager at the Bath & Body Works at the mall. My brother has the most glorious job. He's a maintenance inspector. He goes to malls, apartments, retirement homes, and a lot of other communal spaces. He travels to each location to inspect them for, issues. I don't know. He doesn't talk about it a lot. We talk every Friday, like I said, but he's always asking questions about me. He thinks that's his job as the older brother. He's always asking about Laurus, about work, if I made any friends, like I'm a kid. Last Friday, he said that I should be visiting our mom more, even though he never actually is around. I like talking to him, but half our conversation is about stuff he thinks I should be doing. I don't need him to tell me what to do. I'm doing fine right now. I have a place to stay, a job that's good enough. I don't need to go to school or join a yoga group or a book club or whatever new suggestion he has. I understand that he can't deal with staying in one place, but maybe I want to try it out. I sound like I don't like my brother. I do. He's just been acting all fatherly since Dad died. Especially now that Anthony is married and has a kid, a 2-year-old girl named Dina. Now that he's settled down, he's acting less like a brother, more like a career advisor. Again, it's not like I'm thriving here, but I don't need to. I don't want a 9-to-5 job with a spouse and kids. I'm just doing what I can. I tried to move. I tried to make something of myself, but I always end up back here like a frickin' boomerang. Anthony actually gave me the opportunity in Chicago. It was after I finished the trials with Laurus. After they denied letting me volunteer again, I kind of had an episode. I stayed in the area to finish at community college, but once I was done, I packed up and moved to another state. There was an opening for a front desk clerk at an apartment building, at one of the ones that Anthony inspected. He wasn't supposed to, but he put in a good name for me, and a job and an empty place opened up around the same time. Chicago was nice. A lot different than here. St. Jacoby, Missouri is always slow-moving and friendly, and the people in Chicago really couldn't give a shit about who you were or what you were doing. There was something about the fast-paced movement and the constant changes that was kind of soothing to me. I even made a few friends. A lot of people in the apartment complex went to one of the art schools nearby. I like going to the theater, so even though I didn't make any best friends, I found some cool people. The issue was that there was a Laurus location only a block away. It wasn't a school. The only full-fledged university they have is here. It was just a laboratory. Like the Laurus in St. Jacoby was when my dad was working at it. It was in a small building down the street from the auditorium theater. I remember because I moved to Chicago in June of '99, and because of the renovations, they didn't show anything until October. When I left in December, they had been showing the Nutcracker for 2 months. I like theater, but I'm not really a ballet guy. Anyway, the Laurus lab had a lot of foot traffic. It was kind of weird. All these chipper people in lab coats seemed to take up the entire city. You could tell because of the patch on their coats. It's 2 leafless trees side by side, with 2 parallel bars running horizontally through their trunks. I thought it was weird that the lab was there. Chicago was supposed to be an escape from Laurus. The city is 7 hours away from St. Jacobi. It's a ridiculous coincidence they had chosen the one other place I was going to make their lab. For the first few months, I tried to avoid them. I was starting over. It was a clean break. I guess I was trying to give them the silent treatment. I was still pretty sore from them not letting me volunteer. I avoided going down the block where the lab was. I didn't make eye contact with anyone wearing the lab coats, but, like I said, there seemed to be someone who worked at Laurus in every restaurant, on every street, and eventually, one of the employees moved into the apartment complex that I worked at. Sorry, I'm gonna need some courage if I'm gonna get through this next part. I don't have to tell you. I'm beginning to realize that, but then again, if I don't tell you, then who else will know? Maybe you'll learn from my absolute stupidity. Her name was Christine. She was interning at Laurus, so I guess she wasn't an actual employee since they didn't pay her. So she lived in the apartment complex. I worked the night shift at the front desk, and she was one of the few sober people that I checked in. While everyone would saunter into the complex at 2 a.m., still high or drunk from whatever Chicago nightlife they come back from, she always came in calm. I never saw her leave since I was probably sleeping, but I imagine she was more put together in the morning. I always saw her after the day has done its work. Her hair would be falling out of her bun, her clothes bearing a coffee stain or two, her breath heavy from holding all her textbooks. One night, after about 4 months into my stay, she asked me to help her carry her books to her room. Of course I helped. I wasn't technically supposed to leave the desk, but I thought it'd be rude. She only lived on the first floor anyway, so, I helped. It became a nightly thing. I'd walk her to her room, and I end up hanging around the hallway a bit longer than usual. Eventually, Christine told me she stayed up so late studying. She was done with her internship around 7 p.m., then she would head to the Dunkin' Donuts down the street and study till she couldn't take it anymore. She knew my shift didn't start until 10 p.m. I can't really place when we started dating, or if it was ever official. I never asked her out, and she never mentioned to me either. It just started. Pretty soon we were spending all of our free time together. Christine lived alone as well, but we spent a lot of time in her apartment, because it was much better organized than mine. She was able to turn the tiny studio apartment we were given into what felt like an actual home. She had a garden on her windowsills, colorful lights hung along the walls, tapestries and matching mugs. She had an old vinyl that she played Elvis on. The first day I visited her at Dunkin', she was drinking a black coffee at 8 p.m. We didn't talk a lot that first night. She said she had started a new course load a few weeks before and was already getting tested on the material. But like I said, she was incredibly organized. She had a plan for every hour of her life. I watched her study for 2 straight hours that first meeting and did so for the rest of our relationship. But I never got bored of watching her work. Her planner was her life's chart, but her stopwatch was her keeper. That first night, she greeted me and had me sit down in front of her. She was working out of a thick stack of papers and a textbook about neuroscience. She asked me about my day, and I answered, and her stopwatch beeped. She excused herself, then dove in. For 15 minutes, she was lost in her work. I could have started a fire, and I don't think she would have noticed. Her handwriting was immaculate. She took her notes like she was creating art. 15 minutes of watching her writing, her stopwatch beeped, and she looked at me with a smile. She explained that she was studying brain chemistry in hopes to one day be able to unlock the secrets of the world's most powerful organism. Sometimes it was hard to be around her. Around someone that's smart and put together. I was a B- student in community college. How was I supposed to hold up against this future brain surgeon? I like to think I helped her. I would help quiz her for her tests, using her index cards that could have been displayed in the Chicago Art Institute. I let her draw on my head as she would explain where my frontal lobe or cortex or whatever it was. My hair grows really slowly, so I was rocking a crew cut at the time from after the surgery, but she thought it was a perfect canvas. In exchange, I asked her my share of questions too. Many of them she didn't know, or claimed she didn't know. Others she says was classified, but that still was information to me. She had an insight to Laurus. She knew what they were doing at the lab. I tried to ask her discreetly. I just asked about her day, if she did anything new, if anything exciting has happened. Christine was very good at deflecting. She was good at giving me the bare minimum, then shifting her focus to something else. That really was her greatest talent, being able to diverge her attention to one thing completely. I learned how to navigate that in order to find out more information. I know I went to Chicago to get away from what happened at Laurus, but the opportunity was there. When I first asked Christine about human subjects, she said there was no experiments that needed any. That they were simply working on calculations, they were developing questions and researching. They were too new a facility to even gain clearance to work on animal subjects. That excuse worked for a while, but like I said, I watched her study a lot. I knew they were doing something more. Back in St. Jacoby, after they denied my request to volunteer, Dr. Sparrow and the other scientists who did the experiment left once they were done with me. I don't know why. I thought maybe they could have moved locations. Maybe they were in Chicago. Christine denied knowing anything about it until I went through her notes while she was in the shower. In her backpack, there was a binder she always kept on her but never opened. I assumed it was just more homework or nonsense, so I never asked about it. I never thought to ask about it. Christine had a binder for every color of the rainbow. She had a whole filing cabinet in her room. I was incredibly lucky to pick up the yellow binder. I went through it and I found a pocket notebook that had my name all over it. Literally all over it. Not in a cute hearts and kisses middle school way, but like there were drawings of a head, of a brain. In one of the drawings, there was a tiny blue square where the base of the skull. I think that's where the implant is. The thing they put in my head. She knew about it. She already knew about it. I wish I had read closer. I know that she was taking notes about me. There was a page about my sleeping patterns. Another one about... I know there was one about my speech impediment, but I wasn't really reading. I was in shock. I was flipping through the pages in horror, and I forgot to listen to her stopwatch beeping. She saw me. She yelled at me and pushed me out of her apartment. She went off about how I knew how important her organization was to her, and well, it was a lot of nonsense excuses. She knew I had caught her. She didn't give me time to ask any questions. She shoved me out and reported me to the manager of the complex. I had to move to St. Jacoby the next week. I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have a job or a place to stay. Before I left, I walked towards the lab. I didn't know what I wanted. Maybe I was hoping to run into Christine again, to demand answers or apologize. I don't know. What I wasn't expecting to see was Dr. Sparrow. She was in a similar lab coat like everyone else. She was walking into the building when I passed with my suitcase, about to catch a bus to leave Chicago. I didn't call out to her, but she turned to me as if I had. She approached me. She was not a tall woman at all, but I felt like she towered over me. She smiled and said it was nice to see me. I had so many questions I wanted to ask. Why was she there? What were they doing in there? Like Christine, she didn't give me any time to question. Instead, she told me about the presentation she was doing. It was about one of the glands in the brain. The one that controls hormones, I think, like puberty and stuff. She gave me a pamphlet, and it had the picture that Christine drew of the head of, well, I guess it could have not been my head. But the other notes, though, they were, like I said, it was all stupid. I don't know if I was overreacting or if I was onto something. I moved in with my mom for about 2 months when I got back. I was trying to recover. I wanted to go get a normal job, maybe even go back to college. But Laurus wouldn't stop sending me letters, calling, offering me jobs and insurance, and calling my mom, and that's when I went to the farm. But that's another story. I can't help but wonder about Christine's notes. Did they... Was any of it real? Did she even ever want to be with me? Or was it Laurus that... I'm gonna get to bed. I have to get up early tomorrow. I'll talk to you soon.